What do you think about when you hear the term the environment? We know that human activity is having a detrimental impact on the environment, and this is something that affects all of us. No matter who you are or where you live, the environment is something that affects us all. It's one of the many global issues that we face. So what is it? Let's define it first. When we're talking about the environment, we're referring to the world we live in. The land, the ocean, the atmosphere, and everything that all of these things contain. From the oxygen we breathe to the many species that we share this planet with. Another way of referring to the environment is to call it the natural world. So join me as we take a closer look at some of the activities we humans engage in that affect it, as well as some of the global initiatives that intend to raise our awareness about these issues and how we, as individuals, that's you and me, can contribute to reducing the harmful effect we're having on the environment. By the end of this video, you'll be equipped with the vocabulary you need to be able to talk about the environment, and you'll be aware of some of the actions you can take to be part of the solution. The purpose of this channel is to open lines of communication between you and me. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the ways in which we can help each other and the planet. Now, I've organized the information in this video in 4 main areas, and they are air, water, land, and animals. And in the animals section, I'm including us humans. We are part of the environment, and so I've included us in that last section. But we know that everything is interconnected. So when this video has been quite challenging to put together, actually, because as I was doing my research, I realized that it was almost impossible to talk about one aspect of the environment without involving the other. And I think that's one of the main lessons of this video, is that I'd like to talk about the interconnectedness of all things. If you're new here, my name is Tanya, and in this channel I post videos about all things English through topics that matter in the world today. So if you're an English learner or an English teacher, or if you're interested in joining a community that interacts using standard English to talk about global matters, subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell to be advised every time I upload new content, because it'll be relevant to you. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. I recently wrote an article for an IELTS publication. The publication was issued by the Global Issues Special Interest Group, and it's a publication called Creating Global Change. I'm going to leave a copy for you right here. It's a PDF and it's free for you to download, and it's a wonderful compilation of articles written by English teachers sharing their experience of bringing global issues into the classroom. The article I wrote was about mindfulness in terms of the way in which mindfulness helps me. It's a way in which we can all practice to bring more well-being into our life, and also through mindfulness, the way in which I can bring certain global issues into the classroom. I also attach in my article some resources, so if you're a teacher, you can just download a couple of lesson plans there with materials. It's all ready to go. Okay, so let's get started with our first environmental topic, the air element or the atmosphere. So what we're talking about when we talk about the atmosphere is that thin layer that surrounds the Earth, which contains all of our weather. So clouds, rain, snow, as well as most of the oxygen and water vapor. This very thin layer closest to the Earth is called the troposphere, and the further away we travel into space from this layer, the thinner the air becomes and the colder the temperature. Immediately after the troposphere is the stratosphere, and this is where the ozone layer is. And for some time, there were concerns among the scientific community that there was damage being done to the ozone layer. But my research shows that actually this damage is being slowly repaired. So that's excellent news. The ozone layer protects us from the sun's ultraviolet radiation. The quality of the air that we breathe depends on where we live. But big cities, for example, have a lot of pollution. And where there are high levels of pollution, there is poor air quality. And this is caused by greenhouse emissions, especially carbon dioxide, but also methane, which I'll be speaking about later on in the video. But carbon dioxide is emitted from factories, airplanes and cars. Another aspect of the air element that we're having an impact on is the weather. And many areas of the world are seeing more extreme weather events like hurricanes, flooding, drought, heat waves and wildfires. Hurricanes are great, powerful storms that form out in the ocean, and when they come towards the land, they bring with them very strong winds, heavy rains and storms, which can cause terrible devastation. Flooding is an overflowing of water in land that is normally dry. And drought is the opposite. It's a period of time when an area experiences below normal precipitation, that's rain. So when we talk of drought, we mean water shortage, which results in reduced soil moisture and can cause crop damage. Crops are the plants we grow and harvest for profit and sustenance. And examples of crops, in addition to the ones we grow to feed ourselves and to feed livestock, which I'll come to later in the video, are fiber crops like cotton, oil crops like canola, ornamental crops like tulips, and industrial crops like jojoba in Spanish. A heat wave is a prolonged period of abnormally hot weather, and wildfires are unplanned, unwanted, and uncontrolled fire in an area of combustible vegetation. They can occur anywhere and harm homes, agriculture, humans, and all animals in their path. 90% of all wildfires are started by humans. Finally, we can say that humans are increasingly influencing the weather patterns and temperature by a series of actions that I'll talk about in a moment, and contributing to global warming and climate change, which is a change in the average conditions, such as temperature and rain, over the whole Earth. Let's move on now to the second topic, water. I've already spoken about rain and storms and floods. But let's look a little bit more deeply at water pollution, its causes and effects. Water is very vulnerable to pollution because as a universal solvent, it's able to dissolve more substances than any other liquid on Earth. Toxic substances from farms, towns, factories easily dissolve into and mix with it, causing water pollution. The most common types of water pollution are agricultural, sewage, wastewater, oil pollution, and radioactive substances. Contaminated water is very damaging. It kills us, it kills animals, and at the very best makes us very sick. Healthy ecosystems consist of a complex web of plants, animals, minerals, bacteria, and fungi. When a lake or a marine environment becomes polluted, oxygen levels are reduced, and this affects wildlife, as plants and animals are suffocated and struggle to survive. Chemicals and heavy metals are toxic to aquatic life and make their way up the food chain. Another aspect of water pollution is ocean acidification, which makes it more difficult for marine organisms, such as coral and some plankton, to form their shells and skeletons, and existing shells begin to dissolve. What about land-related environmental issues? There are more than the ones I'm going to mention today, but let's talk about the ways in which we exploit fossil fuels, and let's talk about deforestation and agriculture, particularly agricultural livestock. So let's start with some definitions. Fossil fuels are carbon, crude oil, and natural gas, and these are the primary source of energy for every domain, including transportation, industrial, residential, commercial, and electrical power generation. If we look just at petroleum, for example, that we obtain from crude oil, the way in which we obtain, process, transport, use, and distribute it causes a great deal of damage to the environment. Crude oil is obtained by drilling, and one of the ways of drilling is by fracking, which is the injection of fluid at high pressure into an underground rock formation in order to open fissures and allow trapped gas and oil to flow through a pipe and up to the surface. Fracking involves drilling as much as 3 kilometers deep into the earth. The fossil fuel industry uses vast areas of land for infrastructure, such as wells and pipelines and access roads, as well as facilities for processing, waste storage, and waste disposal. This results in land degradation and the destruction of natural habitats. Crude oil is toxic and non-biodegradable. And any type of crude oil spill or oil spill has a very harmful effect on the environment. Oil spills have destroyed numerous ecosystems. When an oil tanker spills oil at sea, the oil spreads easily across the water, killing many plants and animals. Fossil fuels create a great deal of pollution. Refineries emit toxins into the air and water as they process crude oil into usable oil. See how everything is interconnected? And then as they're used, the burning of petroleum products emits toxins into the air, including carbon dioxide, which contributes to global warming. Drop a yes into the comments below if you're starting to see how environmental issues are interconnected with one another, and we can't really separate and look at only one thing, because that one area is certainly going to have an impact or an effect on other areas. Okay, let's move now into another area of land environmental issues, which is deforestation. What is deforestation? It's the destruction of large areas of forests, and it happens for many reasons, such as logging, which is the cutting down of trees for sale as timber, which we use to build homes and furniture, for example, or pulp to make paper and paper products. Another reason why deforestation happens is for agricultural reasons. Trees are cleared in order to plant crops. Or urbanization. Trees are cleared in order to build houses. And mining. Trees are cleared in order to mine for minerals and other things. Now, there are many damaging effects of deforestation. It represents a highly significant threat to our climate, air quality, and biodiversity. Why? Because trees absorb carbon dioxide. So fewer trees means more carbon dioxide in the air. And this means an increased greenhouse effect, which leads to global warming. Reduced biodiversity results in the extinction of many species of flora and fauna. Deforestation also results in soil erosion, which means that whatever we want to grow in that area where trees have been cut down do not have as much richness in the soil as other areas where trees have not been cut down. Another result of deforestation is that the water table is lowered. And when the this is the level of water underground, and when the water table is lowered, it makes it more difficult for farmers to keep the crops alive because the soil is dry. Agricultural livestock, which is farm animals such as cattle, cattle is cows, and pigs, and poultry, poultry is chickens, and sheep, are responsible for a large proportion of greenhouse gas emissions, most notably methane. So it's not only carbon dioxide that damages the environment, but also this gas methane. Raising animals for food requires massive amounts of land, food, water, energy, and it creates incalculable suffering for the animals. This constitutes one of the most complex and important moral problems of our time, as animal agriculture kills over 100 billion animals per year. And we must ask ourselves, what are the ethics of supporting harmful industries when less harmful alternatives are available to us? Which leads me to the last but not least topic for this video, and that is animals and the detrimental impact that we are having on the animal kingdom, consisting of 8.7 million species that share this planet with us. All of the environmental issues that I've been talking about in this video are directly linked to human activity and the very ways in which our societies and economies work. So what can we do to reduce our impact? What role do you and I play in the topic of the environment? The answer is you can do a lot. It's in each of us individually to find ways of helping the environment. The first thing is to become aware of the facts. Humans and the environment are interconnected. We are part of the environment, not outside it or separate from it. It's fair to say that you, me, we are the environment. It isn't only outside. We know that we humans are warm-blooded mammals, and there are many other warm-blooded mammals on the planet. All apes, but also cows and pigs that we raise for food, as well as wolves, bears, giraffes, hedgehogs, llamas, rabbits, and our domestic companions, dogs and cats, are also warm-blooded mammals. And so we share these two characteristics with all of these animals. Warm-blooded means that we produce heat within our own body in order to maintain a stable temperature. That's called homeostasis. I'm sure you remember that from your biology lessons at school. And our bodies do this by burning the food we consume to produce energy. Now, let's just pause here for a minute and think about this. When we talk about the environment, we're talking about the natural world. And in the natural world, there are 5 elements, right? Earth, water, fire, air, and space. We tend to think of the 5 elements as being out there. But as we've just seen, our body produces heat. And so the element of fire is within us as well. The earth element is also within us in the form of what we eat. And whatever we eat, we obtain from the outside, from the land, from the ocean. And without the outside, we cannot survive. And so destroying the outside is the equivalent of destroying ourselves. It's the same thing. All organs in our body also make up the earth element. Our blood, sweat, and tears. Blood, sweat, and tears are the water element within our body. So water is outside in the shape of the oceans, lakes, rain, rivers, but also within us. We are made of earth, fire, and water. And what about air and space? Well, we know that when we breathe in, oxygen enters our lungs, and from our lungs is distributed into the blood. And as we breathe out, the blood exchanges carbon dioxide into the lungs and out into the air. So carbon dioxide, which the trees need to survive, is a waste gas for us. And trees, in their turn, produce oxygen, which is what we need to survive. So we can see there's a very clear interconnection between the natural world outside and our body, ourselves, through the air element in the environment. As for space, we might look up at the sky and see the space between ourselves and the stars, between ourselves and the moon. What vast space there is between us and the universe. But magnifying technology has helped us see that our bodies are made of some 37.2 trillion cells, and that there's intracellular space between each of these cells. Space is the container of all the other elements. Without space, we cannot have earth, water, fire, and air. So the first thing we can do, the first solution, is to become more aware of the interconnectedness of all things, the fact that we are with the environment. The second thing we can do, according to scientific research, after awareness comes action. We need to find cleaner sources of energy that don't have such a heavy carbon footprint. Our carbon footprint is the degree to which we as individuals contribute to greenhouse gas emissions that damage the environment. Mobility, that's transport, shelter, which involves electricity, heating and construction, and food, which involves deforestation for agriculture and livestock agriculture, are the most important consumption categories. The third thing we can do as a result of the second is to consume less. We don't need so much stuff. The fourth thing we can do is to consider changing or transitioning towards a vegetarian or vegan diet. But perhaps the most important thing we can become aware of in terms of the damage and impact we're having on the environment is the question of overpopulation. This is the single most important issue we all face, as it silently aggravates everything we've talked about before. The planet cannot regenerate itself at the same pace as human population grows. And as overpopulation increases, so does the loss of fresh water, so does global warming and climate change increase, as well as the depletion of natural resources and the extinction of species through habitat loss. There's also much higher risk of the spread of new epidemics and pandemics. So what solutions are there for this underlying cause of damage to the environment? Well, we need to implement mitigation measures, such as spreading awareness and education about overpopulation, and provide universal access to birth control devices and family planning. We need to educate and support the public, particularly in developing countries, about overpopulation, and provide them with the tools they need to make the decisions they want. Worldwide, nearly 40% of all pregnancies are unintended. That's about 80 million unintended pregnancies per year due to a lack of access to information and affordable means and services to determine the size of women's families and the spacing between pregnancies. The American philosopher Isaac Asimov said as far back as 1988, and I'll leave a link to this interview below for you to see for yourselves. He said that the price of our freedom is the equality of women. And when the interviewer asks him that, why did he say that? He says, because if women have full ability to enter into all facets of the human condition, if they can enter business, if they can enter religion, science, government, on an equal basis with men, they will be so busy that they won't feel as necessary to have a great many children. So we need to implement policies that defend human rights, promote education, and reflect the true economic and environmental costs of childbearing. Okay, hope you found that helpful. Remember to comment below with what action you'll be taking to be part of the solution for climate change and the environmental issues we face. Also, you can pick up a copy of my free audio book and ebook, 5-Step Guide to Transform Your English. I'll drop that in the description box below also. And if you enjoyed this video and it helped you reflect and make connections and contemplate the interconnectedness of all things, or if you learned anything new, subscribe to my channel. You can subscribe right there and click the bell to be notified when I upload new content. And watch another video. You can watch one there or there. Until next time.